It's time now for another episode of Mr. Nelson's Wednesday Comics. And, well, I'm going to talk about DC Comics for the most part here. Apparently there's a new golden age dawning at DC Comics, right in the midst of the apocalypse, because things are pretty bad. This is one of these things that is like a Hail Mary pass, but they did a Hail Mary pass with Geoff Johns when they did their Rebirth initiative to save the failure of New 52. And so he suddenly threw in that Dr. Manhattan was the real mastermind, or hand, rather, behind the results of Flashpoint, rather than the Flash changing time and all that. It obviously was not the original intent, but he did that, and it shook things up for a little bit, and there's some amount of excitement for that. But it fizzled, and then the Doomsday Clock was the one that was supposed to explain it all, but it seemed to be ignored by DC overall as far as the universe, as it were. He was offering explanations for it and stuff like that, trying to map it out, and it was largely ignored. Well, now they've turned to him again. Gee, I wonder why. Geoff Johns is not perfect by any measure, but as it stands, he's probably their best guy to write stories and whatnot. But this is past the 11th hour and the troubles that DC finds it in. So the Zaslav headhunters came a-calling, I imagine. So what do you do? And how much money is that making for us? So it's already been pretty, downgraded and whatnot. So what becomes of it? The usual guess is that it gets farmed out to some other entity to handle publishing and all that of DC Comics, and basically Warner Discovery just collects the license fee check. So here we are at Cosmic Book News, and this thing of introducing this initiative for the new Golden Age. And Matt McClellan says that he had talked to people at San Diego Comic-Con and said, hey, DC Comics isn't dead yet, but I think it's going to be certainly. I think a lot of people are going to go away, and Geoff Johns is doing his best here to try to shore it up, and that there's still something of a DC universe that survives in whatever form, whether it's outsourced or not. The fear of things like that is that everybody just wants Batman, so Batman is off in some other entity. And then a couple other characters, Superman goes somewhere else. So then there's no real cohesive DC universe anymore. And for the brand, I don't think that would be in Zaslav's interest, because he's said, concerning the movies, he wants it to be this shared universe entity on par with what Marvel has done. So anyway, this is the press release. The new Golden Age of DC starts this November. Spinning out of the conclusion of Flashpoint Beyond, which I am reading. It's interesting, but then again, things that are interesting can just be teasing cool stuff and then fizzle. And Geoff Johns has done that with Doomsday Clock. I think it had a lot of cool elements to it. It was getting exciting, and then it just, and that might not be his fault. Maybe that was the top saying, we're just not going to go through with what was supposed to result from it. I don't know. But it did just sort of, it doesn't really matter. And so that could be the same here. Flashpoint, the original one, is cool in and of itself, but the results of it, not so much. There were some high points here and there, but overall, New 52 was a failure. And it's odd because it recalls back to, I always say that Crisis on Infinite Earths was a cool story. I enjoy reading it. It was all, but the results of it, I think, was very damaging to DC overall, and they've been trying to fix it ever since. So anyway, Golden Age, well, the return of the Justice Society of America, which was part of his Doomsday Clock thing, the aspect of it, and showed that Dr. Manhattan had sort of eliminated them, although they were revived and rejuvenated in another version on an alternate Earth and all that. And that's when they introduced the original gay Alan Scott. Now he's just magically gay in the original universe. Yeah, well, pretty stupid, but it's the times. Need to concentrate on story more than tokenizing and all that. So there will be a new ongoing series of Justice Society of America, and then this Stargirl miniseries, spinoff of it because she's part of the JSA and all that. So from the 40s to the 3040s. So I guess they'll create a golden age era, maybe Legion of Superheroes. I don't know. Great heroes across the DC timeline take on the great evils of their era. But in the aftermath of Flashpoint Beyond, which pretty much tells you what the conclusion of Flashpoint Beyond is, it creates yet another new DC. Those heroes and villains will have their lives turned upside down again, from the past to the far future. The new Golden Age one-shot from Jeff Johns lands at comic book shops on November 8th. So be sure to check that out. And we'll unlock DC's epic and secret-ridden history of heroism. Well, you mean rewritten history. So now there's more secrets. Launching a new group of titles with Justice Society of America and Stargirl, The Lost Children. So I'm happy to be writing these two titles, each one of them focused on celebrating and expanding the history and far future of heroism in the DC universe, exploring unseen heroes, villains, and adventures alongside the ones we all know and love, said Jeff Johns. Our goal is to delve into the neglected corners of DC with this new group of titles, from the JSA to the Legion, and all those who operate between. It's the story of where superheroes came from, where they're going, and why they're always needed. DC's future, and its past will never be the same again. Well, the past is the past, You're just writing a new one to try to make it all fit. Hopefully it succeeds. Otherwise, it's more than likely just going to complicate things all the more. But how are Mime and Marionette connected? Okay, so that's the characters he introduced in Doomsday Clock. So I guess he'll be going on with them. Why are Rip Hunter and the Time Masters the most unlikable heroes in the DC universe? Because I guess they time warp everything and people aren't happy. And who or what is nostalgia? Well, that's a concept of missing your past youth, when you're in middle age and you're like, man, there's more years behind me than ahead of me. That's what you mean it's okay. So, he's still connecting to this. So he's a roundabout way getting back to what I'm guessing he intended for that business of bringing in Dr. Manhattan and the Watchmen, interacting with the DC universe proper. And so a nod to nostalgia as some sort of entity or character. Of course, nostalgia was basically the core of Watchmen. And so that he's going to play with that. I'm sure there'll be some people upset about that. And for the most part, I think they've made their case, and more or less probably should just leave Watchmen alone. But, Dr. Manhattan's this one character who could do this sort of stuff. So, but beyond that, that's probably about it. But anyway, don't miss the start of the strangest mystery to ever have plagued the DC universe, which Doomsday Clock pretty much concluded that the creation of the metaverse, that's the core universe, and it's constantly changing, and every time it does, it reverberates. And so whatever was the prime metaverse becomes another alternate universe and continues on, and you probably never hear from it again. So the New 52 universe continues on somewhere with those versions of Superman and Batman and all that, and so on and so forth. And really solidified around Superman as being the first superhero, which I always thought should be the case. With Justice Society coming in, if they're going to go back to the way it was, where they, after Crisis on Infinite Earths, it's set it where there was no Justice Society for a while. Then they came in and said, yeah, okay, there was, but that was all in the past. They had their run. And then the superhero age kind of faded for a while. And then Superman shows up in the 80s. The problem with that is that with all the excitement and wonder by the people living on Earth in the DC universe when Superman shows up, with the past having been that there was this Justice Society group, is like Superman's like, oh, look at that. It's another guy with superpowers. That's interesting. And that's it. I guess you say, well, later on he earned, but the immediate reaction to him in all his origin stories is like everybody's astounded, by this, as if they'd never seen or heard of anything like this before. But they had, during World War II. They would have been all this footage of these superheroes. You had Green, and it's not just, Wildcat or somebody like that. It's Green Lantern and Dr. Fate, and the Spectre shows up. These awesome powers on display by these characters. So seeing a guy flying around in a cape is not that big of a deal by then. So I don't think it works quite well as far as Superman goes. And of course, you're stuck. You can't go, well, okay, Superman showed up in 1938. Well, okay, but then you're in real time. So all the stories of Lois and Jimmy are long over with because they've died, And so how do you make that where Batman's dead? You're on your, I don't know, 4th generation Batman by then. It doesn't quite work out. I know John Byrne did Generations, which gave some interesting takes on how that could work, and that was kind of cool. But that's not what they're doing. And so unless they're restoring that this is this other Earth, and there was a Superman who was a member of the Justice Society, and they restore the original Superman, that could be interesting too. But I don't know. That would be, for me, I would rather they just do that because it was simpler. The response of Crisis on Infinite Earths was that, boy, this is confusing and complicated. It really was. It was much better than trying to constantly rework this. And it didn't quite come together. So, but it looks like some of these elements is connected to his ideas for Doomsday Clock. So it's possible that he's going to keep in with that. So somehow, some way, you maintain that Superman is the origin point of the DC universe, which of course he is. That's what started, which is kind of why didn't they call themselves the AC? I think there was an AC Comics company. Maybe that's why, I don't know. But because they should be Action Comics, right? Even though Detective Comics does predate Action Comics, but Batman didn't show up till the 27th issue, but it's just not as exciting, Marvel beats them on that. That's a better name for a comic book company. But it didn't happen that way. So, but Action Comics 1 is the birth of superheroes. Really, the comic book superhero in full form is right there. And so I just, out of respect, if anything else, I always thought they should maintain Superman is the first superhero. Stories about secret societies and, supernatural characters and all that sort of stuff and stuff that happened in the distant past. That's fine because it's all secret and unknown for the most part. So it doesn't matter. But, yeah. So, this is the description for the new Golden Age #1. And, Jerry Ordway, that's good. Yeah. Will be in it. After making their long-awaited return in the pages of Dark Crisis, which I passed on. I've seen synopsis of it. I just can't delve in. I don't know. Maybe the collection, I'll look at it. But I doubt it. On Infinite Earths #3, the Justice Society of America are back in Justice Society of America, the new Golden Age, Part 1. Well, what do you know? Or are they? A long-lost hero from the JSA crashes into our era with a grave warning. But it's too late. A mysterious and malevolent enemy has invaded the entire history of the JSA, and an all-new team must come together to defeat it. But what deadly secret does this messenger from beyond keep? Where are they from, and why is all of this happening now? Only the Time Masters know. So, let's say there will be familiar faces rejoining the team like Jay Garrick and Alan Scott, as well as long-lost members returning like Beth Chappell and Yolanda Montez, and a new Golden Age legacy hero first hinted at in the end of Flashpoint Beyond. Michael, I guess Michael, I don't know. Janin is doing the work of his career on this, added Johns. Justice Society of America is an ongoing monthly title written by Johns, featuring art by Guess Who. And the first issue will be available at local comic shops on November 22nd. So, I don't know if this is the cover of Golden Age, maybe, and this is the cover of the. Oh well, that's probably the Stargirl thing. Yeah, these variant covers. Justice Society #1. There's nothing I get more gratitude from than continuing the legacy of my sister with Stargirl, and to do it with Todd is a blessing as well. As we introduce DC's secret golden age of teenage heroes in a fun mini event, added John. John's teaming up with iconic young Justice illustrator Todd Nauck for an epic teenage DC hero event, Stargirl: The Lost Children. When Stargirl of the Justice Society and Green Arrow's ally Red Arrow discover a tragic teenage hero from the past has gone missing, they set out to find him, only to discover he's not the first teenage hero of the Golden Age to have vanished without a trace. But where have they gone? Who are they? And what does the childminder want with them? Oh boy, that doesn't sound good. So I don't know if these are people from the distant past who have been missing all this time and they decided to investigate it. And they're probably still alive in some dimension or whatever. Well, childminder. Oof. I don't know. So anyway, that's what they're going to do. All of a sudden, they need to find out where they are and who are they. Yeah, you probably should start with who are they. That might be important because who knows? You might have ran into them at the store and never knew it. It looks like old style art from the 90s and whatnot. I guess it's a variant cover for Justice Society. There, that looks like Jerry Ordway. Yeah, it is. That's the Justice Society that I knew, where Power Girl grew up and Robin looked like that and stuff like that. Power Girl was a popular character and people wanted her to stay around. So after the Crisis on Infinite Earths destroyed the Justice Society, she survives, and then they just sort of didn't know what to do, and it's like some of the characters didn't really acknowledge the crisis or anything. It's like they didn't remember it entirely, and then all of a sudden they made up this story where she was actually a descendant from Atlantis and all this stuff, and then they just Jeff Johns came in and wiped all that away because that was stupid. And she didn't remember, but now she knows. Oh my God, I'm from this alternate Earth that ceased to exist and all that. So Infinite Crisis tried to bring that back for a while. It was cool, but that they couldn't seal the deal, and which I thought, yeah, you should have restored the multiverse and just had at it after that. But so there you go. So Lost Children. Every issue of the Justice Society of America and Stargirl: The Lost Children will feature a new Golden Age banner above the title. I'm like, well, okay. And here's some artwork from that series. And here's Red Arrow. And they team up to go on their adventure looking for these lost heroes. So I guess these are some of the lost heroes they'll be looking for on the conspiracy theory wall. And looks like this little guy is who they will be looking for. Is that a version of Sandy, I think? Well, I can't remember. But so there you go. That's what to look forward to. And restoring them to what they originally were, I'm all for. And just doing an interesting story overall. Of course, it's all for the best. My hope is this is in line with the approach that they've done with World's Finest, which right now is the best mainstream superhero title going. And if they follow that, then this would be great, except it's probably far too late. I don't know what Zaslav will do with this company. But look, someone's trying and they're getting the opportunity. Maybe that's part of it. I don't know. This does sound good and everything, but I just think it's probably too late. And that's unfortunate. But I'll check it out. I will do that. And if it stays in line along the pursuit of the basics, that hard to believe, but yes, Mark Waid is the one doing that. Which again, sure, he's a leftist a-hole, but he actually had skill, and he just leaned on that rather than worrying about Twitterverse all the time, and he produced good work. So World's Finest is good, and if the same approach is applied to this initiative, it'll be good as well. So there's some amount of excitement there, But again, I fear it's probably far too late. So, all right, I was going to do more. I guess I'll pass that on to the next show. This went longer than I expected. So this will have to do it for this week's episode of Wednesday Comics. Join me again next week, and hopefully I'll actually review a comic book I've read. But anyway, thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.